Welcome to Rise Untold, where the stories behind the spotlight come alive. Jim and Jon Hager, the iconic Hager Twins. Two brothers who looked the same, sounded the same, and for a moment in time felt like they could make the whole world smile. On the stage of Hee Haw, they were more than performers. They were legends. Their blonde bangs, their matching suits, their harmonies and humor made them household names. But behind that easy laughter and perfect image, life was far more complicated. And in the end, heartbreak would write the final chapter of their story. Born on August 30th, 1941, in Chicago, the twins didn't come into the world with privilege or fame. They were adopted by a Methodist minister and his wife, who raised them in Park Ridge, Illinois. From the very beginning, Jim and Jon were inseparable. They spoke alike, moved alike, even finished each other's sentences, and they shared one passion that would shape their destiny: music. By 11, they were already singing in church choirs and local events. Nights were spent strumming guitars, dreaming of stages bigger than their small hometown could hold. Their bond wasn't just brotherhood. It was a rhythm, a harmony, an unspoken connection that only twins could understand. Eventually, that dream pulled them to California, performing arts college by day, odd jobs by night, and theater gigs wherever they could find them. It wasn't glamorous, but it was a start. And then, one night in Los Angeles, everything changed. While performing in a small club, the twins caught the eye of Buck Owens, a rising star in country music. Owens saw what others hadn't yet: a raw authenticity, an energy that couldn't be faked. He brought them into his world, where they worked as guitarists and backup singers. For Jim and Jon, it was the first taste of the life they had imagined. Then, in 1969, CBS launched something unexpected: a quirky country variety show called Hee Haw. It was designed to compete with the urban comedy shows of the time, but in its heart, it was pure country charm. Buck Owens was tapped to host, and when producers asked who could bring spark and laughter to the cast, he had one answer: the Hager Twins. And just like that, their lives changed forever. On Hee Haw, Jim and Jon weren't just musicians. They were entertainers. Their comedic timing was flawless, their harmonies smooth, and their bond magnetic. Fans adored them. Women swooned, kids imitated them, and families tuned in week after week, waiting for the moment the twins would light up the screen. They became heartthrobs, the darlings of country television, proof that sometimes lightning really can strike, twice, once in each twin. But behind the smiles and sketches, the truth was far more fragile. Fame is rarely as perfect as it looks. Jon thrived in the spotlight. Outgoing, charming, he loved the social scene. He laughed loud, lived big, and made the most of the fame Hee Haw gave him. Jim, however, was different, more introspective, sensitive. The demands of constant performance wore him down. The need to always be on, to always be the smiling half of a perfect pair, took a toll he couldn't put into words. Depression wasn't widely understood back then, but Jim lived with it. Quietly, silently, he began to withdraw. While Jon sought out parties, relationships, and adventure, Jim craved solitude. Off camera, the brother who had once been the spark was slipping into the shadows, and yet they kept going. The show needed them. The fans expected them. They smiled, they sang, they laughed on cue, but the deeper truth was that Hee Haw had locked them into a formula: sing, laugh, repeat. There was little room for their original music, their deeper voices, or Jim's need for something more meaningful. Over time, Jim's frustration grew. He wanted out of the box, out of the jokes, out of the expectations. Jon, meanwhile, leaned into it, his charisma keeping him afloat even as the pressure mounted. What once had been an effortless bond between twins was now strained under the weight of fame. When Hee Haw ended its syndicated run in 1993, so did the rhythm of their lives. Without the show, the spotlight dimmed. Concert bookings slowed. Crowds grew smaller. The energy that had once propelled them forward was gone. They tried state fairs, gospel albums, charity events, but it wasn't the same. Jon kept chasing new ideas, solo projects, television pitches, even Christian programming. But the doors that once opened easily now stayed shut. The industry had moved on. Jim, meanwhile, struggled even more. Without the distraction of filming and touring, he was left alone with his depression. The silence that fame had once drowned out was now all he could hear. He withdrew further, calls unanswered, invitations declined, the once vibrant performer fading into quiet isolation. For years, the bond that had carried them through everything grew weaker. Jon became the face of the duo, while Jim retreated into the shadows. The chemistry wasn't gone, but it wasn't the same, and as the years wore on, the toll was undeniable. Then came the heartbreak. On May 1st, 2008, Jim Hager was found dead in his Nashville apartment, just 66 years old. The cause was believed to be a heart attack, but those who knew him believed the real battle had been inside all along. Depression, the quiet kind, the kind nobody talks about until it's too late. For Jon, losing Jim wasn't just losing a brother, it was losing half of himself. For 6 decades, they had lived as one. Now he was forced to face the world alone. He couldn't. The grief consumed him. He withdrew completely, shutting out the world, leaving their guitars, costumes, and memories untouched in their home. And then, just 8 months later, on January 9th, 2009, Jon Hager passed away in his sleep. He was 67. No heart attack. No warning. Just silence. Some say it was coincidence. Others say it was heartbreak. But those closest to him knew Jon couldn't survive without Jim. The Hager twins were more than entertainers. They were brothers bound so tightly that when one was gone, the other followed. Their story is more than laughter and fame. It's about loyalty, about the crushing weight of expectation, and about a love between brothers so deep that life without the other was simply impossible. Today, they're remembered as icons of Hee Haw, faces of joy and harmony that lit up millions of homes. But the deeper truth is their legacy, a reminder that even those who make the world laugh can be fighting battles no one sees. So when you think of Jim and Jon Hager, don't just remember the smiles and songs. Remember the bond, the brotherhood, and the love so powerful that it outlived even death. Because in the end, they rose together, and they left together. If they could bring joy to millions while carrying their own pain, if they could love so deeply that even death couldn't separate them, then maybe you too can rise, no matter what shadows you carry. Because think about it, the Hager twins were not superheroes. They were 2 boys from Chicago, raised by adoptive parents who simply had a dream and the courage to chase it. They laughed, they sang, they stumbled, and they hurt, just like all of us. But they still gave the world their best. They showed up even when it wasn't easy. They performed even when the weight inside was heavy. Jim carried battles that nobody could see. Jon carried the pain of losing his other half. And yet, together, their story wasn't just about music or fame. It was about resilience, about brotherhood, about love so powerful that it echoed beyond the grave. So maybe the real lesson is this. No matter what you're facing, no matter what shadows you walk through, your story isn't over. Life can feel heavy, unfair, and at times unbearably lonely. But like the Hager twins, you still have something inside worth sharing. They carried pain, yet still gave laughter. They battled silence, yet still left behind music. Their journey proves that even in struggle, there is meaning. Even in loss, there is love. And if they could rise above it all, then maybe, just maybe, you can find your strength, your voice, and your reason to rise too.